Okay, we're live. Hi everyone, this is Thomas Newman of VIVA Financial Tuition. You're very welcome to today's free webinar for the MCS, so the Management Case Study for May 2021. This is the first of a series of webinar sessions that VIVA is going to be running for the May exam, and you're very, very welcome indeed. So I'm just going to wait a minute as a few more people join the session. There's a chat button to the right of this webinar that you can utilize to write your comments, write your questions, etc. I'll be making time at the end of the session for questions, but what I'll do is I'll walk you through the first half or so of the pre-seen document first of all, and then we'll take your questions at the end. This session is going to last about 2 hours, but what we'll do is we'll take a break in between, so around the 1 hour mark. We'll stop for 5 minutes or so to get a glass of water, etc. And we'll come back then and do the rest of the session. Okay. So I hope you're keeping well. And I've got a few screens to share. Just bear with me 1 minute. Okay, I'm just opening the pre-seen document to share with you. There we are. Okay. Okay. So, I do hope you're all keeping well, and thank you very much for joining us, because obviously it's the weekend. I'm sure there are things you would rather be doing maybe instead of sitting in on a CIMA pre-seen analysis, but we have a question there from Barbara. Okay, yes, this session will be recorded and will be available to VIVA members. It will be actually available, the replay of this session will be available to anyone who registered for this session, okay? So thank you for that question, Barbara. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is, first I'm gonna just share with you the okay. Okay, so you should see that. I'm going to share with you an overview of the VIVA course for May 2021, okay? For those of you who are interested in going forward with the course after today's session, because this is just the first of many sessions. So for those of you who are not aware of VIVA Financial Tuition, we've been around about 4.5 years now, and you know, we've specialized really in the case study. We've analyzed about 48 cases from top to bottom in that time. We've served almost 7,000 CIMA students in that time. We've had very, very high ratings indeed. For our most recent classes, for example, we've received a score from our students of 4.7 out of 5. So high satisfaction. We're specialists in CIMA, so it's the only qualification we concentrate on, so we're not distracted by other qualifications. CIMA gets all of our attention. I know it's obviously the case that all tuition providers are kind of forced to do online classes these days, but VIVA actually started out online and has always been online. So that means that we're able to keep our costs lower and pass those cost savings on to our students in the form of a much lower price. And big news, so at the end of 2020, CIMA named 6 tuition providers worldwide as having achieved the Global Pass Rate Excellence Award, and VIVA was one of them. So very, very proud to join that list. And what it means basically is that the courses that we ran, the scores our students got were in excess of the CIMA averages. And as I said, only 6 providers made that list. So VIVA, there we go, along with Kaplan, BPP, HTFT, First Intuition, and Wisdom. So some very established tuition providers on that list. Most of them, I would invite you to go and check their offers, etc. but you'll see that the price points are quite a bit higher than Viva's. So as I said, we're very, very proud to join that list. And the tutors for this course, the MCS course, so we've a range of subject matter experts and a range of different experiences, and we think we've got a pretty good team for this particular case study. So Hugh Martin is a former CIMA prize winner. He is Viva's Director of CIMA Content, and he'll be leading you through the P2 Applied sessions that I'll talk about a little bit later. He'll also do a key issues session, and he's been deeply involved in the writing of mock exams for this particular case too. Hugo Newman is the co-founder of VIVA. He's our e-expert and industry expert, so he's done a lot of industry analysis over the years. He's an academic by training, so it's right up his alley. And he'll be leading the E2 Applied sessions and the industry analysis sessions. So I'm the founder of VIVA, Thomas Newman, and I've done a lot of these case study analysis, 48 in total over the years, and I really enjoy doing them. James Griffiths then is the financial accounting expert. He'll be taking the F2 Applied session. So, as I said, a range of different subject matter experts and levels of experience for this course. So, I'm going to talk about the different classes that will be involved in the MCS course, but there are basically two options to unlock the rest of this MCS course. So after today's free session, we'll be doing a lot of other webinars. And if you want to attend those other webinars, you'll need to pay, okay? So first of all, there's all access, okay? So that's our subscription product, and you get access to all of the on-demand content at VIVA for 365 days. You also get access to over 150 live webinar sessions that we're running this year, including these MCS sessions, okay? So you get access as part of this course, the MCS course, to 7 live webinars, and I'll talk about what they involve in a minute. You get 5 mock exams included as well, without mock marking. So all access is a really nice way to unlock everything on the website for 365 days. So if you're actually progressing through not just the MCS exam, but you want to go into the strategic level and you want access to an E3, F3, P3 and SCS course for the next year, that's a great way to do it. And what I'll do is, to the right of the webinar, there's an offers button, and we usually sell all access for £299 per year, and that gives you about 1,000 hours of CIMA content. So we think it's a fantastic offer at £299. But we're going to run an offer for £229 for the next 2 days. So you can avail of that offer by clicking on the link at any stage during this webinar. And after this session, we'll send out links as well. And the other alternative then is the MCS Elite course, okay? With the MCS Elite course, we were hearing from students that, you know, they loved the all access offer, but some wanted to go a little bit beyond that with more personalized one-to-one tuition and direct contact with tutors. So they wanted more live classes and sessions, etc. So with the MCS Elite course, it's another way to unlock the MCS course. So you get all access, but only for 60 days this time. And what that allows you to do is to dip into the E2, F2, and P2 courses during the MCS session in case you need to go back and review something from those sessions. You also get access to the 7 live webinars we have for the MCS course. You get 5 mock exams, but you also get marking included. Now, on top of that, you get 6 additional live workshops, and they're 2 hours each. And I'll talk about what they involve in a minute. So that's an additional 12 hours of live workshop sessions. You also get 2 one-to-one calls with your tutor, 30 minutes each, one at the start of the course, one at the end of the course. Very, very useful for identifying your personal strengths and weaknesses and getting a more tailored plan for your study. And you also get a pass guarantee, so that if you fail in May 2021, you get free access to the August 2021 course. Okay, so that's the MCS Elite option. Okay, so these are the 7 live webinar sessions we'll be running for the MCS course. Okay, and you get this with all access, and you also get this with the Elite course. There's today's session, which is the first half of the pre-scene. Okay, so we're going to do that today. That's a free session. The other 6 sessions you see there are not free, so you need to have all access or the Elite course to get them. So tomorrow we've got the industry overview. That's a look at the real world industry. The next session we'll do then is the next day on Monday at 7 o'clock UK time, which is a review of the second half of this pre-scene. Today I'm only covering the first half. So the second half of the pre-scene, including the financial analysis, which is crucial. Then we'll have a little bit of a break and you'll do F2 applied, E2 applied, and P2 applied sessions. They're about an hour and a half long each. So what we do there is we identify the most important theories from each of those subjects in relation to this case, and we talk about them in the context of this case, okay? And how you can use them to answer questions. And then we'll wrap this live webinar schedule up with a key issues session at the end, which talks about the 10 most important topics, okay? So the 7 live webinar sessions. You also get the on-demand content at VIVA. So this is our library of content, about 1,000 hours of CIMA content on the VIVA website. So you get this as part of All Access plus the Elite course. So you get theory reviews of E2, F2, and P2. These are high-level overviews of these 3 subjects that you can quickly go back to if you need to refresh your memory quickly about what they each entail. We have a series of videos, on preparing for the case. So this is understanding your role as a financial manager, how to use the pre-scene document, applying theory, etc. Then we have another series of videos on what you do on the day of the exam. So this is all about what the examiner is looking for. What are the do's and don'ts on the day of the exam? How do you manage your time in this very time-pressured exam? And we talk about writing skills as well. As I said before, you get 5 mock exams. These are very, very close to the real thing. We have a history of predicting a number of the topics that actually come up on the day of the real exam. And you get access to the full E2, F2, and P2 courses. So you can jump back into those courses at any point if you're having particular difficulty with a theoretical point that's coming up in the MCS. Okay, so that is All Access, and the Elite course give you access to that online bank of material. With All Access, you get 365 days of access to all of this. With the Elite course, you get 60 days of access. Okay, so the next steps, if you want to take up the All Access offer for £229 is, well, you've already done the first step, which is to register for today's webinar, the first free session, so well done. Second step, you can purchase All Access at the discounted price of £229 through the link in the offers section to the right of this webinar. Alternatively, we'll send out an email after this session with the link. After you've done that, VIVA will email you today or tomorrow, we'll email as soon as you sign up, the links to the remaining 6 webinar sessions. You'll unlock those, okay? Starting with tomorrow's industry analysis. And then we'll add you to our Facebook group. So there's a general student Facebook group for the MCS in May21 where you can interact with other students. Now, there's also a Facebook group for the Elite course, which is far more interactive because you've got a tutor on there interacting with the students. As part of the All Access package, the Facebook group that you get access to is more of a student group. So there's very little tutor involvement there, okay? So if you have any doubts about the All Access offer, please do email us at info@vivatuition.com, okay? info@vivatuition.com. Okay, so that's the All Access. That's what it gives you. And as I said, the Elite course also gives you access to that. So if you want something more, that's the Elite course, which gives you access to these additional live workshops. So these are highly practical 2-hour sessions, very, very exam focused. You'll see there the 6 sessions, detailed overview of the exam and the marking process is the first workshop. The second workshop is on applying theory and generating answers. Third workshop is on answer construction and time management. The fourth workshop is recognizing what a good answer looks like. So your tutor will actually walk you through an answer and point out all of the reasons why it is a good answer. And alternatively, they will also do that with a bad answer. So they'll really walk you through a bad answer and talk about why it is a bad answer. So very, very practical. Exam style question practice is the 5th session, and the last session is exam question practice and final recommendations. Okay, so very, very practical sessions, 2 hours each. We intentionally keep the size of the Elite course small. Okay, so there are only 20 places here. We do that intentionally because we want to give each student a high level of attention. Now, it's important to point out that we've already got 12 of these places taken up. So there are only 8 remaining places, and they will fill up quickly. So if you do want a place in the elite course, you will need to act quite fast. With the elite course, you get access to a private Facebook group as well. The difference is with this particular group is that the tutor is on there very, very frequently and posing additional questions, responding to comments, etc. Okay, it's a great way to interact with your fellow students as well. So we think it's a winning formula for the MCS Elite course. We benchmark this very carefully against other offers. We always take care to offer something that is competitive in terms of price, and we also look after the quality. So we think this is as good an MCS course as there is on the market. So it involves coaching. You get one-to-one calls, 2 30-minute calls with your tutor, 22 hours of live webinars and workshops in total. You get access to all of the on-demand content at VIVA for 60 days. You get those 5 mock exams with marking. So that's very, very valuable. You get comments from your tutor and a mark for each of your exams, flagging up your strengths and weaknesses and how to improve. And you have that student community as well. So it's a great course. And we've seen that it works very, very well. We ran this for the first time in November. We'll be running these all year. And we saw some exceptional improvements in the students who sat those courses. So these are just some typical examples of students who came on these courses. They're very representative. Angela came on, got a 44% in her first mock, which is a fail. And by the end was scoring a very, very solid 72.5%. Elaine, 31%, a very, very poor mark on the first mock, 60% pass mark by the final mock. Liam was already scoring very, very high, 77%, but pushed that into possible CIMA prize winner territory by scoring 86% on the final mock. So we've seen those kinds of results on the elite course. It's a very, very complete course indeed. Okay, next steps if you want to join the elite course. To book your place, you pay a £99 deposit. And then what we do is we allow you to pay the remainder of the fee, which is normally £699. But for the next 48 hours, we will offer that for £599. So what you do is you pay the £99 deposit. If you do that in the next 48 hours, you've booked your place in the course. And then we will ask you how many installments you want to pay the remainder of the fee over. So £500 remaining, you can pay it over 1 month, 3 months, 6 months. So you can spread out the cost. So once you do that, you'll be prompted to schedule your first call with Hugh Martin, our coach for this particular course. He was a fantastic tutor. He's a former CIMA prize winner. He's the director of CIMA content at VIVA. Very, very good tutor. And we'll also give you all access membership to everything on the website for 60 days. And VIVA will email you the 6 2-hour workshop sessions, the links to the remaining 6 live webinar sessions, the link to the private Facebook group, and a terms and conditions sheet for signature. So they're the next steps with the elite course. And of course, if you have any doubts whatsoever, please email us at info@vivatuition.com. Okay, info@vivatuition.com. So what we'll do after this session, we will email out the link to book your place on the course, to pay the £99 deposit, that you can do so through that link that we'll send out after the webinar. Okay, so that's the course. As I said, any questions, please email us at info@vivatuition.com. Okay, so let me just see in the chat box if we've got any. So everyone seems to be able to hear me okay. Yeah, great. Thank you for the congratulations. Okay, on the Globe Pass Rate Award. We're very, very happy with it indeed. Okay, so Disha says, is it possible to attend just one paid session, like the second half of the pre-scene analysis? No, Disha, it's not. It's not. Okay, so what I think we'll do now is we'll dive into the webinar. The webinar, no, we're already on the webinar, the pre-scene. Okay. Okay, let's see. So I've opened the pre-scene document. Okay, just bear with me, guys. Okay. Okay. So you might hear some chanting in the background. There's a football final on here today where I'm based, and the fans are quite excited about it. Okay, so I'm going to share the pre-scene document. Let me know that you can see this. Yes, okay, we should see that. There we go. Great. So we can see that. And let's make a start. So what we'll do is we'll go for about an hour, then we'll take a break and we'll come back and finish this out. So what we're going to do is talk through the first half of this session today, of the pre-scene. Okay. Okay, so if at any point you you lose the connection, you can refresh the webinar, you can come back in. This session is being recorded and you'll receive the replay after. So please let me know if you have any difficulties with sound or anything like that in the chat box, and I'll see the comments coming through. Okay, so the May-August 2021 CIMA Management Case Study exam opens with this statement, which is very, very interesting. It's a statement on COVID, okay? So previously, CIMA was not saying much about COVID in last year, for example, for the case study exams, and it was leading to a little bit of confusion. Students were very understandably wondering whether they had to bring in COVID, whether they were to assume COVID wasn't happening, or so it led to a lot of confusion. And I'm glad to see that CIMA has clarified for this exam what's going to happen. So it's basically best to assume that we are in normal times, that there is no COVID-19 pandemic. It has not had an impact, and it is business as usual, okay? And that there are no restrictions to the movement of people, goods, or services in place, okay? So that is the opening statement from CIMA. So assume COVID is not happening, okay? So the company we're dealing with is a company called Trainer, which is an executive education business. So this is one certainly that interested me very, very much. And we're going to lead you through the pre-scene analysis today, the first half. So we'll take you up to about page 13. Okay, so let's dive into the introductory section. Trainer is an unquoted company that offers executive training courses. The company is based in Capital City in Northland, but it offers its courses at several international locations. Okay, so fictional city, Capital City, fictional country, Northland. We don't really have an indication where exactly this is, although it says in the next paragraph that Northland is a developed country with a high standard of living. So that's a little bit of a help, because we can assume that wage costs, for example, for this business are likely to be quite high, okay? But the fact also that Northland has an excellent higher education system with high percentage of the population holding undergraduate and postgrad degrees means that they can also tap into a very skilled labor market. So that's obviously a positive. The negative is they're likely to be high cost employees. So going back to that first introductory paragraph, very, very short, unquoted. This obviously limits the financing options the Trainer has. So F2, sources of finance, they obviously have no access to equity finance. So they're likely to be relying on the cash that they generate from their operations and the profitability of the business. And we'll see later on, this is a very profitable business. And debt financing. We'll also see later on that this is a business that is not carrying a lot of debt. So they have plenty of financing options. They could even decide to list on the stock exchange, perhaps, to give them even more in the way of financing options. But for the moment, unquoted, they're not a stock exchange listed company. So executive training courses. So we can probably hazard a guess early on that the customers they're dealing with are likely to be quite demanding. So these are likely to be people high up in organizations, and they're likely to have high expectations. So the fact that the company is also internationally, geographically diversified is a positive. They're not relying on their home market. And in fact, later on, we will see that they don't do courses in their home market, which is a little bit strange. Moving on then, we see that Northland's currency is the N dollar. Okay, so, fictional currency again. We don't really know how it compares to other major currencies like the US dollar, British sterling, the euro, etc. We don't know what the exchange rate is, and there's no indication during the pre-scene what it might be. But there we go, the N dollar. What we're told is that the company is expected to prepare its financial statements in accordance with International Financial Reporting Standards, IFRS. So, what about you? You're a financial manager. Okay, so you're moving up in the world. For those of you who came through the operational case study, you would have been a lowly finance officer. You're moving up in the world, so you've got a little bit more say in the way things are happening. So you're a financial manager at head office in Northland. Your primary responsibilities, we're told, are linked to management accounting. You report to a senior financial manager, Zodzi Tsikata, who reports in turn to the finance director. Okay, so let's think a little bit about this opening section. A financial manager, what does this role actually entail? And you need to get in the mindset of a financial manager. You need to pretend that you're a financial manager at this company and adopt that mindset. So some of the things that a financial manager needs to think about: monitoring the implementation of strategy. Okay, so you're no longer just involved in the day-to-day execution of tasks as you would have been at the operational level. And what you're doing here is you're kind of overseeing that. So at the very top of the business, the strategy is being formulated by the finance director and his or her colleagues. They kind of pass that down then to you, and they need you to ensure that the execution of strategy by people lower down the organization is taking place properly. Okay, so you're overseeing that. You've got a medium-term focus. So at the operational level, it's about a short-term focus. So maybe, 2-3 months, very much the day-to-day. The strategic level, which hopefully you'll be graduating to soon enough, that's more about the long-term strategy of the business. And the management level is in between those two. So you might be talking about a time horizon of maybe 1 to 3 years. So you're thinking about what kinds of investments should the business be making in which product categories? What are the pricing strategies that we adopt for each of those products? So you're going to be putting in place longer-term financing, so long-term debt, possibly tapping into equity, maybe a listing or something like that. You're going to be thinking about risk, so the risk involved of entering new markets, new product categories, of changing pricing strategies, etc. And you've got more advanced financial reporting considerations, basically consolidation. And we will see that this business has a number of fully owned subsidiaries, which complicates the financial reporting. You're expected to influence top management because you're going to be dealing now with senior managers, directors, etc. And you're expected to consider the wider external environment. So at the operational level, it was more about just focusing on your particular department, your particular business, to the exclusion almost of all else, making sensible business recommendations. What you're expected to do now is to consider other stakeholders, not just your own business. Think of customers, think of the wider community within which your business is based. You've got to be a good corporate citizen. So, thinking of any environmental impact your activities could be having, for example. You want to be thinking about regulators and those kinds of issues. So thinking about your wider industry, thinking about the wider environment within which your business is embedded. So what about major issues that we see coming up? So just to flag these in advance of talking about them in more detail later on. So with P2 and E2, these would be some of the major issues relating to this particular business and this pre-scene. P2, quality. Okay, so we're going to touch on quality at various stages and quality issues that could come up when it comes to the provision of these courses for these demanding executives. We're going to be talking about responsibility centers. So each of the subsidiaries of the business is classed as a profit center. So we'll talk about what that entails. We'll talk about financial and non-financial performance measures. So a balanced scorecard, for example, could be brought into this business to give it a fuller, more holistic view of its overall performance, not just having a narrow focus on pure financial metrics, although they're still very important, obviously. Because this is a multinational with a number of subsidiaries, and there's a commission, for example, being paid to a number of these subsidiaries, we've got transfer pricing to think about. Value analysis, engineering, value engineering and target costing are considerations for the business if they want to drive costs down. And risk and uncertainty are important considerations. So using things like standard deviation, sensitivity analysis, expected values, etc., will be considered. For E2, some of the major issues would be digital disruption. So we all know that, well, many industries have been disrupted by digital innovators, and the education business is no different. So there are obviously online e-learning platforms. There are individual online businesses that cater to professionals. There are massive open online courses. So both free and paid options, lots and lots of options for students of all types. Managing performance is going to be a big, big issue with this business because they're outsourcing a lot of their course content creation to freelancers. So how do you motivate freelancers? They're not employees. How do you incentivize them to do good work? Dealing with conflict and the ecosystem. Okay, so thinking about, as I said before, the wider environment and how partners and stakeholders in the industry interact. Okay, so that's the opening page. So already plenty to think about. Okay. So let's take a look at the executive training industry. What does it involve? So executive training companies provide short courses. So by short, we mean 3 to 5 days, working days. And actually, we'll see later on in the case of trainer, they're not even really full working days. It's more like 9 to 1 or 1:30. And then everyone just goes their own way. So we're talking about 4 hours over maybe 3 to 5 days. So maybe 12 hours, 20 hours max. And the question needs to be asked very early on, how effective are these courses? So very, very short courses. How much of the content are the students or delegates, as they are known, actually taking away with them? Or is this just a good excuse for executives to get out of the office, go to a nice hotel, spend some time at a nice location and network, and the learning effect is just a kind of a secondary consideration? So that is one potential criticism that I'm flagging up very early. So short courses. The students, the executives who are participating in these courses, as I said, they're known as delegates. Okay, so I suppose it's a little bit of marketing here. They don't want to call them students and make them feel junior because these are very, very senior people. So there's a little bit of ego involved. So perhaps this is a more acceptable term for some of the very senior people who are coming on these courses. Okay, so it obviously gives delegates an opportunity participating in these courses to update existing skills or to get new skills if they want to be more effective in the workplace. So here's a photo of a fairly typical scenario. So it might be a hotel, and we've got maybe 20 people in that particular class, so quite small groups. The idea would be that you can offer a little bit more in the way of personal attention to each of the students. We seem to have a tutor up top or a trainer. Everyone has their laptops and they're making use of the conference room facilities at a hotel and the presentation technology offered by hotels in these conference rooms, etc. Okay, so executive training courses, they take a variety of different forms. They're provided by a range of different organizations. So colleges and universities, for example, they actually offer executive training courses. A lot of those courses would actually take place on university campuses, and they're often delivered by prominent academics. So famously, Harvard Business School, the Michael Porters of this world. He's a Harvard academic, very, very famous. I'm sure you've come across his name throughout your CIMA studies. So they would be some of the competitors that Trainer is dealing with. And Trainer falls into the second group here, the private sector training businesses. So course fees, they're paid not by the students or delegates themselves, but they're actually paid by the delegates' employers. And very important point here, because they're not being paid by the attendees themselves, instead they're being paid very often by very large multinationals that have big, big budgets, it is possible to charge a significant amount of money for each of the delegates taking place in the course. So what we're seeing here is that the customer, the employer, has very low price elasticity of demand. So that comes from P2. So you might remember with elasticity of demand, if you raise your prices a little bit and there's a big drop in demand, that would mean there is high price elasticity of demand. So a little change in the price leads to a big change in the demand, high price elasticity of demand. But in this case, it's actually the opposite. You can up your prices and charge basically not exactly whatever you want, but you can charge very high premium prices to these employers with deep pockets, and they don't even blink, okay? So they have very low price elasticity of demand. You raise the prices by even quite a bit, and there is a very, very small maybe impact, very small drop in demand. Okay, so this is a high margin industry, premium prices. So, they have their costs, and we'll talk about those in more detail, but the fact they're able to charge such high prices to companies with deep pockets, it safeguards their very robust profit margins. So obviously one aim of these courses is to improve the competence of the delegates when they go back to their businesses. So the companies that send these very often senior people to these courses, they expect a good return on their investment in terms of more competent senior people when they return to their organization. They have new skills, or they've developed their existing skills. So they see that as actually highly cost effective. So they might be paying $3,000 per executive participating in a course, but they're happy to pay that because they reckon that the return will be many times that when they come back to the office as more effective executives. So, competence, that's the main aim of most education. So most universities, whether they're actually training executives like this or undergraduates or any education body, the main aim is improving the competence and know-how of the participants. But what happens in this particular industry, I think is very interesting, is that there are additional benefits being spoken about. And in fact, it almost leads you to believe this case that the improvement in competence is not even the main aim, as you would imagine it should be. Because the other things being talked about here is training is a good way to boost morale of employees. So what it allows these often very, very busy and stressed out executives to do is actually get away from the office. They step back from the pressures of running a business. And it shows them they're valued by their employers. Their employers are willing to invest in them. They take their personal development seriously. So this is a non-cash perk that comes with a lot of senior positions. The employer is telling the employee, we value you. And they send them away to these, as we'll see soon, quite exotic locations for basically a bit of a holiday. And if they pick up some additional knowledge, that's all well and good. So definitely, there's the morale aspect, showing the employees that they are valued. And it's also a good example for more junior employees. So it might be the case that a lot of these employers, they're not quite willing to spend a lot of money sending junior employees away to courses like this because they're not quite sure what they've got in their hands yet. And the junior employee needs to still prove himself or herself But it's holding up an example. It's kind of saying, look, this is what you can aspire to, and we'll send you away in these courses soon. So it's trying to encourage lifelong learning, which is definitely a noble pursuit. But it is about much more than just the learning opportunities for the delegates who participate in these courses. Okay, so we need to draw a distinction as well between the end customer, which is the employee or the end user. That's the employee participating in these courses, and the payer, which is the employer. And trainer obviously needs to deal with both and needs to appeal to both in different ways. So we're talking about our stakeholders here. So we've got two very, very important stakeholders there in accordance with Mendelow's matrix, which you would have come across in E2. So moving on then, we've got two types of course. We've got public courses and we've got bespoke courses. So let's talk about what each one entails. So the public course or courses are open courses that are advertised publicly and can be taken by anyone whose employer is prepared to pay the course fee. So the course outline is published in advance, so delegates and the employers can understand in advance whether it's likely that the course would suit their needs. So delegates enjoy the opportunity to interact with fellow participants on these courses. So they show up to the hotel, they're getting access, to, and very often to people from other departments, maybe that they don't talk to very much, or even to people from other businesses. So it gives them a chance to network. And that is missing perhaps in, online courses to a certain extent, although online courses are always improving with that. They're opening up communities and things like that, which allows students to interact a little bit. But it's definitely still one of the advantages of, in-person courses like this, that there's the human contact present. So as I said before, competence and increasing the skills of the participants and the delegates on these courses is just one consideration. The other considerations, feeling valued by your employer, it's a boost for morale, gives you a chance to get away from the office, and it gives you a chance to network and to draw on the expertise of other participants. So it's not just that they're learning from the trainer or the expert leading the course. It's about learning from the participants as well. So class sizes are typically kept pretty small, 20 to 25 delegates. So we've got a little bit of a capacity constraint because the trainer is unlikely to be able to deal with more than 20 to 25 delegates at any one time. So we've got a capacity constraint there. And again, coming back to digital disruptors, so online courses, they're able to scale a lot better. They're able to take on many, many times the number of students, and they're able to automate a lot of the administrative burdens that a lot of courses have. So that allows them then to take more people on and to drive the price down for the participants, but to actually collect the same revenues that the trainers of this world collect. But overall, with the public courses, I think there's a lot of choice nowadays. There's a lot of competition. There are a lot of substitutes between offline and online offerings. And because you've got so much choice and competition there, you would suspect that eventually what will happen is there will be downward price pressure. So the question needs to be asked, how long can trainer, in the face of, in particular, all of these digital disruptors, online course offerings, how long can they maintain their premium prices? Okay, so it's a big question that we need to consider throughout this pre-scene. The second kind of course is the bespoke course. And this type of course is actually designed in consultation with an employer. So it's designed in consultation with a company or a government agency. So what trainer will do is they will sit down and they will talk about the client's needs. And based on their needs, their specific needs, they will design a very, very tailored bespoke course for a particular group in this business. It could even be for one senior person. So it might be the CEO of a company or someone very high up, a CFO or something like that, that needs training on a particularly niche topic. And a company like Trainer would provide would provide the tutor who is an expert in his or her area, and they could design a very, very tailored course. So this kind of course is actually harder to replicate, because they're so specific to the individual companies. It's not likely that you could just replicate it and sell it to many different businesses. It's likely to only be able to be sold to one particular business. So we'll also see that they're charging very, very high prices for these bespoke courses. The thing about training, though, in general, and particularly with the bespoke courses, because they're so expensive, is that a recession or something like that hits, what happens is a lot of companies really start paying attention to training budgets. Along with marketing expenditure and advertising, training budgets are the first thing to get cut when there's a recession or there are poor results. So that's just something to be aware of. So a company like Trainer is always kind of at the mercy of economic cycles. When there's a downturn, it's likely they will suffer. So executive training courses, they take two forms. They're either developing new skills for delegates or updating delegates' existing skills. What typically happens is early on in a career, someone will start out with in a particular area, functional area like finance or HR or engineering or something like that. But what happens is they'll move up through the organization as they get promoted. It's more about supervising others' work, and it's more about management skills, softer skills, and being able to contribute in board meetings and things like that in terms of the organization's strategy. So softer skills and strategic skills. So these are kind of more generic skills. So they kind of belong in the public course section. Okay, so you would typically see, courses being built in generic skill sets in these kinds of areas: budgeting and financial management, corporate governance, leadership, etc. So it's kind of hard to differentiate these courses, because what goes into any one course for corporate governance, for example, is likely to be very, very similar from one organization to another. Now, much, of course, will depend on how good the tutor is at explaining the terms in a simple way, etc. So the expertise of the teacher or tutor or trainer, as they're called in this case, is always going to be important, and how engaging their delivery style is, etc., is important. But, the content is going to be pretty similar. Very hard to differentiate the content for these generic skills. And this, I think, is especially the area where digital disruptors, digital platforms like Coursera, LinkedIn Learning, etc., have, I think, a big advantage, because they can offer these kinds of courses at scale. They can produce very high quality, well-produced content that sits online and can kind of be supplemented by, a trainer coming in and doing additional live courses and live one-to-one sessions and live small group sessions, etc. So that is a big advantage that some of those new digital platforms would have. So what's happening is we're seeing digital disruption. So this is a big area of E2, the impact of digital disruptors, okay? And the fact that they can come along, offer something for a much lower price point than organizations like Trainer, for example. They've got scale, they're able to automate far more, and they're ultimately giving the end user far more choice and the offer of getting something of similar quality for a much lower price. Okay, so you can also extend or update skills, in certain ways. So HR professionals, for example, it's increasingly the case that they're having to rely on technology to recruit. For example, LinkedIn. So they need to be savvy when it comes to the use of social media. They need to keep up with developments in employment law, etc. So it might well be the case that, someone trained in a certain area, they're still working in that area later in their career, but they just need to update skills they already have. And that's where organizations like Trainer can come in. So these cases are often designed, we're told, to meet the needs of professional bodies for continuing professional development. So this is one close to our hearts, because CIMA is obviously one such body. The example that we're given here is the Northland Institute of Personnel and Development. So that would be a body overseeing HR professionals. So they might have certain professional standards that they expect to be met, and that they expect their members to stay up on the latest skills. So these professional bodies, another stakeholder in Mendelow's matrix, E2. Okay, so we're considering the wider environment here. The different stakeholders, the employers who pay, the employees who are the delegates on your course. We've already mentioned the trainers that are freelancers. We'll talk about those more. And here we have the professional bodies who you might want to consult when you're actually developing courses, because they would obviously really have their finger on the pulse of what employers are valuing in terms of, you know, the new skills that they expect their employees to have. So considerable competition in this industry. New training companies are popping up all the time. They don't need to invest a lot of money to get off the ground. They use large hotels to rent out meeting rooms that are already fully equipped. So we're seeing there is not a requirement to invest in heavy non-current assets. So these are asset-light organizations. This is obviously a problem for a company like Trainer, because there's competition popping up all the time. Trainers are expected to use their own laptops and presentation software. So, you know, we'll see later on that Trainer is relying on 300 or so freelance trainers. They're coming along with their own laptops. They're coming along with their own presentation software. So all of that, it means that they're expenses that the company doesn't have to bear. So very, very asset light. And it's no wonder, you know, that they have good profit margins. So in accordance with someone we've mentioned already, Michael Porter's 5 forces, E2, this is an industry very definitely with low barriers to entry. And that should, in theory, start to put price pressure on organizations like Trainer. So this is challenging. We're seeing that, you know, in the traditional view of the marketplace, which, you know, thinking of E2 again, the 5 forces from Porter, what you see is lots of competition, rivals battling it out for limited, you know, market share. They're all chasing profits, and in a perfectly competitive market, you have price pressure, and eventually prices get driven down and profits decline. So that's the traditional view of, you know, a marketplace, and we'll talk about the ecosystem soon, which is a softer view of competition and marketplaces, and how participants such as Trainer can participate with other partners in a marketplace. This is very definitely, I think, though, a perfectly competitive market. So you have lots and lots of players, low barriers to entry, new players arriving all the time. It's going to put pressure on prices, and it's going to drive profits down over the long term. So a very, very challenging environment for the companies operating in this market. There's a steady flow of newly established training companies, a very high failure rate. But this matters less in the context of the low startup costs. So it's not like an oil company that needs to invest an absolute fortune, you know, in its oil fields and extracting oil and all of the equipment that goes into that. So if they fail, they have massive sunk costs, and they've lost a huge amount of money. With a training company, you know, they might as well have a crack, because, you know, relatively speaking, the investment that's needed to get something like this off the ground is quite low. So there are a few well-established training companies, and Trainer falls into this particular category, and they rely heavily on repeat business from corporate clients. Okay, what we're going to see in this pre-scene is the importance of relationships. It is, I would say, the determining factor in the success of a company like Trainer that is doing these in-person courses with premium prices. Okay, so it's all about the relationship, getting close to the decision makers in businesses, ensuring that they keep taking courses, ensuring that you're reaching the people who have influence to actually pay for these courses. So they might be HR people up high up the organization, ensuring that they obviously have that their delegates, that their executives have a positive experience on the course, so that the course quality is good and that the feedback is good. But you're also trying to convince delegates of the need to take on additional courses. So retaining customers is going to be very, very important. Customer retention rate, That is, I think, a key performance indicator for these businesses, because it's much, much easier to sell to existing customers than to try to attract a new customer from zero all over again. So what we're going to see is Trainer pays a lot of attention to maintaining relationships with their existing contacts, and they try to upsell these companies even during a current course on new courses and try to find out their needs, etc. So very, very important, the relationship that they have with their existing companies, their existing customers. And thinking of P2, total quality management, I would say that there's likely quite high variability of quality in the industry, because you've got this constant influx of new trainers, and absolutely anyone can try this. Well, obviously, with the low barriers to entry, you're going to have a great amount of variability. You're going to have people who are ill-equipped to do this, and you're going to have people who are very, very good at doing this. So that is obviously probably contributing as well to the very high failure rate, that you just have companies and individuals who are trying this who shouldn't be, basically, because they've not got sufficient expertise, and they're not taking it sufficiently seriously. Okay, so quite a challenging industry from Trainer's point of view. So let's talk a little bit about Trainer. So Trainer was founded in the 1990s by the Nasir family. So it's been around about 30 years, got staying power, and it was Asif and his sister, Miriam, who were the original directors of the business, and they built it up over the years. And actually, they're still present. Asif is the executive chairperson, and Miriam is the CEO. So we've got heavy family involvement still. So with a family business like this is a private business. The founders are, the family. They still have a big ownership stake, each of them. There are pros and cons with this. The pros really would relate to a sense of solidarity with a family business, that you're pulling in the same direction. It's about more than just short-term profit. It's about building a legacy. It's about doing something well, etc. And in that way, you're kind of resisting the short-term incentives of a lot of other companies, okay, especially publicly listed enterprises that would come under pressure from shareholders for quarterly profit figures to hit targets, etc. So you can take a little bit more of a long-term view with a family business, especially one that's private. Cons. Sometimes family businesses can be a little bit conservative and slow to change. And also, when there are feuds, they can be particularly bitter. Okay, with family members involved, things can get very, very nasty indeed. So there are some of the drawbacks of family businesses. So just something to keep an eye on. So Trainer's head office is in Northland's capital city. And we know that that these companies offer courses from 3 to 5 days. So Trainer is no different. But it actually offers longer courses as well that could last up to 10 working days. So that would be 2 full weeks, basically. So they offer longer courses too. So Trainer's based in an office building that they actually own in Northland. So it's likely to be a high-cost location. We know that Northland is a developed country. There is a base staff of 60, and they're split out between administration and accounting, global marketing, and course management. And we also have 3 fully owned subsidiaries, 100% owned subsidiaries, 3 overseas sales offices, and they employ 24 staff. And their job basically is to market courses to potential delegates and companies in each of those 3 countries. So we'll see that they're Eastland, Westland, and Southland, 3 fictional countries. We don't know much about them, but we know that we've got 3 sales offices in those countries. Okay, so we've definitely got a small core team. So if you sum up the 60 staff at the central office, plus the 24 staff across the 3 overseas sales offices, we've got a total number of employees of 84. So quite a small business. And obviously this will pale in comparison to the number of trainers that they're using, which is 300. So small core team, but highly reliant on the freelancers that work on the business. And just a word on the office building that the company owns. Thinking of F2, IFRS 16, which is related to leasing. There's the potential to sell that office building and to enter into a leaseback arrangement to actually free up some capital. Now, I don't think that's going to be necessary, but it's just one financing option should they need to make some kind of big investment or an acquisition or something like that. I don't think it's one they're going to need, because we'll see when we look at the financial statements that this is a business with very low gearing, very, very profitable. So they're generating lots of cash from operations. They pay out high dividends, so they could cut back on the dividends. So I think they have lots of other financing options instead of having to, sell an office building to free up that cash and then lease it. So it's just something to flag. It is one potential option, but it's one of many options they have in terms of raising finance. Okay. Because we've got 3 overseas sales offices, and because we're selling courses in other countries, IAS 21 is going to be relevant. Foreign exchange. So coming from F2, we're going to be consolidating foreign subsidiaries as well. So we're going to be recording transactions in different currencies, and we're likely going to be translating financial statements from those overseas facilities as well. So that is going to touch on IAS 21. So you need to make sure that you review that particular accounting standard carefully. So as I said, head office is broken into 3 main areas. So the 60 staff working at head office: administration and accounting, global marketing, and course management. And it's interesting to note, that what you would think for a training business is the main activity, which is creating courses. Well, it's largely just outsourced to the freelancers, the trainers that we will talk about soon. So they're focusing more on the marketing side of things and just overseeing the courses. So that is quite like event management. What we'll see is that they're setting up the delegates with hotel accommodation and flights and ensuring that they have a good time, and they build relationship with the hotels, etc. And they're overseeing the trainers. So quite hands-off, really, in terms of their core activity, which is a little bit of a surprise when I read this first. And we're also going to see that this is a very low-tech business. And I think there are concerns that they can be easily disrupted, particularly with the provision of those generic courses, the ones that are quite common, because there are so many options nowadays in terms of online tuition. And very, very low-tech, as I said, they could be easily disrupted by these digital innovators. So I've talked about the importance of relationships, and this is a company very focused on relationship marketing. When it comes to relationship marketing, it's all about retaining your current customers, ensuring that they are satisfied with your offering, upselling them on new courses and offerings that you have, and all of that is more important than one-time sales transactions, okay? So it's all about the relationship rather than one-time transactions, okay? So it's ongoing. Now, obviously, that is time-consuming, it's costly, but Trainer has obviously built up a very profitable business by doing that, by establishing these contacts and making sure that they're satisfied and keeping those contacts. So this, I think, is their core activity, relationship marketing. That is really the heart of their business. So let's talk a little bit about marketing and see what that entails. So Trainer has an extensive client base that it's drawing mainly from regions that up until now were developing economies, but recently they've started to become more mature economies. So this is good news because it means that these companies in these previously developing economies, they have increasing spending power. So that's obviously great news for a company like Trainer with its premium price point. So they could probably expect more business coming from these more developed countries now. So they're dealing with private companies. They're also dealing with a lot of parastatal, government-owned organizations. Now, the thing about government-owned organizations is that they need to answer ultimately to the taxpayer. So there's a little bit more pressure in terms of what they're paying for these courses. So they're more price sensitive and they're more likely to be looking for value for money. And there are articles towards the end of this pre-scene that will touch upon this. Frustration with some parastatal organizations that have paid for very, very high-priced courses put on by companies like Trainer, and the taxpayers and politicians are not happy it has happened. So that's just one concern to flag up. So Trainer, we're told, takes two main approaches to marketing its courses. Course managers are very active in developing and maintaining relationships. There's that word again. It's going to keep coming up, relationship marketing, with delegates and their employers. So there's always a course manager present during any given course. And what they do in a very low-key way is they chat to delegates during the breaks. They try to get feedback from delegates on their company's needs. They're trying to seek out useful intelligence to find out who are the right contacts at the companies that the delegates work for in terms of booking future courses. So regular email contact is being maintained also with past delegates and their training managers, again, to see what their needs are. So very, very time intensive, very relationship based. And I also want to ask the question about how is this information actually being captured? Where is it being stored? Is it all pen and paper? Is this information living on the individual laptops of these course managers? How is it being relayed to head office? Is it being captured by some central system? So you would have something like a CRM. So that's customer relationship management. There are lots and lots of tools that could capture that kind of information. Tools like Salesforce would be examples of CRM systems. So ideally, you would like to see them employing those systems. I wouldn't be entirely surprised if they're not, because there are no signs that this is a technologically savvy business. There's no mention of an IT director anywhere. So I would not be surprised on the day of the exam if it turns out that they're just all capturing this system individually, the course managers, on their own laptops, and that there's lots of information falling through the cracks. So what they might, one scenario on the day of the exam could be having to invest in a CRM system, for example, where there would be a centralized system, a way to digitally capture this information where everyone would have access to this. And you could build up a proper digital profile on each of the delegates and their employers. And you could easily then pull that up, and anyone could pull that up in the business. Okay. So we've got 3 overseas sales offices. They're based in Southland, Eastland, and Westland. We don't know much about these particular subsidiaries, and they're 100% owned. So remember what I said about IAS 21 from F2. We've got exchange rates coming into play there. If these overseas sales offices are charging their delegates in the companies based in these countries in their own currencies, that would be obviously a little bit of an issue, because exchange rates can be quite volatile, which can impact on profitability, etc. So the local sales teams, the point is that they get very, very close to the local market. So they're developing contacts with local employers, and they maintain contact with local training managers, and they can relay that then to head office in Northland. Obviously, they should be using social media, things like LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the most obvious one, to generate leads. So this is using technology to more quickly identify decision makers. And it's a faster way potentially to identify decision makers rather than picking up the phone and calling different companies. So you would hope they're doing that. So the local presence definitely helps maintain bookings from the 3 countries. So definitely local presence is important. It ensures continuity of contact with important clients, and it reduces the pressure on course managers at head office to do everything. So Trainer, we're told, is happy also to accept clients from any country. So they're not just focusing on clients coming from these 3 markets. They've got a website, we're told. New clients, we're told, are sometimes recruited through Trainer's website. And I think that's an interesting way to phrase it, because it's indicating here that it is suboptimal, that it is not perhaps working as well as it could. They could be relying more on their website to generate leads and sales. So I would hope that they would try to push more website bookings, and that might involve more technologically savvy people being employed by trainer. Okay, no sign of an IT director, no sign of an IT department. That looks to me to be an oversight. So you would maybe like them to take on some IT expertise to ensure that their website is optimized from a user experience, from an SEO point of view. So that is search engine optimization, so that when HR managers and when employees, etc., from companies are looking for a particular course, and obviously the first point of contact is likely to be Google. They'll come and they'll Google it. You would hope that trainers' course offerings are coming up on the first page. I doubt that's the case currently, but that's something they could potentially invest in, and then they would see more sales coming through their website. Okay, you also capture a lot of very useful analytics in the way people are behaving in your website if you've got a well-built website, one that's optimized. So I don't really think that they are engaged in much automated marketing, which is having a well-functioning digital presence in the form of a good website that generates lots and lots of leads. You can automate lots of marketing there. When people sign up on your contact form, you're triggering automatic emails, etc., and you can start building a relationship in that way. And instead of doing that, what they're opting for is the very time-intensive, old-fashioned way of building relationships and maintaining relationships, picking up the phone, face-to-face stuff. It's ongoing, it's time-intensive, it's costly, etc. There's a question about how they're capturing that data. It's worked for them to this point, but there's no reason why they couldn't do both. Okay, so they can keep up the relationship building, but they can also introduce a little bit more in the way of automation. Okay, and trying to generate leads on their website and through online channels. So clearly, though, the local presence is helping, which indicates that it's something they could go on doing. So if they want to go on doing that, opening new local offices, it would be a way for them to develop new markets. So that's in accordance with E1's Ansof's matrix, which you would have come across a while ago, but which is still relevant for this case. And what we're told here is that head office is treating each of the 3 overseas sales offices as a separate profit center. So they've got responsibility for revenues and costs and ultimately profits. Okay, so we're hitting on the area of P2, responsibility centers. Now, it's worth asking what costs and revenues are actually controllable by the sales offices, because if they're being held responsible for profit, but they're not actually, they don't have much control over revenues, then that's obviously going to be a problem, and it's going to lead to frustration with the sales offices. Same goes for costs. Okay, so if they're being held responsible for the costs, that they're not incurring, it's obviously going to be a problem for them. So we've got to raise those questions early on. What we're told in the next paragraph is that the overseas sales offices incur all costs locally, and they're credited with a commission from trainer's head office whenever they enroll delegates on a public course or sign a contract for a bespoke course. Okay. So we need to ask the question whether they're being fairly compensated. So it's obviously in the interests of the head office to try to keep commissions down. That's what you would maybe expect. And it's obviously in the interest of the sales office to get as high a commission as they possibly can if they're being held responsible for the profit. They want as much revenue coming in as possible. So that could potentially be a source of conflict between the sales offices overseas and head office. And we're hitting on the area of transfer pricing as well. Could be the case, that head offices identified maybe one of the sales offices in Westland, Eastland, or Southland is in a lower tax jurisdiction, and they might be artificially inflating the commissions that they're sending their way, and in that way they would be taxed. The tax rate would be lower in that particular jurisdiction, and it would be a way to keep profits higher for the group. That's one potential scenario. With transfer pricing, ideally, you would want your sales offices to be as autonomous as possible, okay, in determining revenues and having control over their costs, etc., so that they feel that they're in control over what they're actually being judged on, which is profit. But what you also want to do is to ensure that there is goal congruence. So if you have highly autonomous sales offices on the one hand, you also want to ensure that what they're doing sits well with the group as a whole. So is the group as a whole and the individual sales offices, are they pulling in the same direction? Are their incentives aligned? Okay, so these are considerations to keep in mind. And another thing to think about, so we've got all this talk of profit, so financial metrics, clearly very important, but a fuller understanding of performance would entail, the balanced scorecard method, which, you've seen in P2 and at E2. So thinking beyond the financial perspective to think about the customer perspective, which is obviously important. So getting feedback from delegates after they've taken courses, which is something they do. We'll talk about that in a while, but how are they capturing that? Again, is that information being captured digitally? Is it centralized so that everyone can access it? The internal business perspective, so in terms of managing quality, etc., and innovation and learning. So one of the dangers, perhaps, as I said before, with the family-run businesses, can be a little bit conservative and can kind of keep doing things the same way. Now, when I look at this business, it was established 30 years ago. I imagine that they were not doing things all that differently 30 years ago. As I said, there are no signs that this is a technologically savvy business at all. And I think it is a business that is open to digital threats and disruption. So signs that they're a little bit conservative and not innovating as much as they should be. Okay. So what we'll do now is we'll take a little bit of a break. Okay. So what we'll do, it's 20 past. And what we're going to do is we're going to pause. We'll come back at 25 past. Okay, so we've got a 5-minute break. Well, actually, let's make that half past. Okay, so we've got a 10-minute break. So I'm just going to pause the webinar and we'll come back in 10 minutes. Okay. Okay, we're back. Okay, so someone asked, what time is this on until? Okay, so it was meant to last 2 hours, but I can see that we're probably going to go a little bit over that. I would say we'll be on for another hour. Okay, Christopher. So what we'll do is I'll take you up to about page 13, I think, of the pre-scene, and then we'll stop and have time for some questions. So I would say another 40, 45 minutes maybe on the pre-scene, and then we'll have time for questions. So let's proceed. So the course locations, interestingly, none of trainers' training is undertaken in Northland or in the host countries of the sales offices. So those 3 sales offices. So what happens is the training courses are taking place in quite exotic locations. It seems they all have to be within an 8-hour flight from capital city. So that's quite far away, to be quite honest with you. And when I saw the 8-hour flight being mentioned here from capital city, clearly there's an environmental impact here, and we are all living with the consequences of climate change. And of course, people are more and more concerned about that. So from a CSR perspective, I wouldn't be surprised entirely to see something go up on the day of the exam where companies like Trainer are coming in for a little bit of scrutiny. It's not something that is absolutely essential to be flying all over the world to do these courses. You could host these courses in Northland or maybe one of the sales office countries and have delegates come, from shorter distances, etc. And of course, a lot of these courses can be done online now. The fact that they're not doing courses in their home countries seems like a missed opportunity to me, because you can reduce the costs, obviously, of hosting such a course. So they might want to opt for more stripped down courses in their home territories and in the sales office territories. So you would strip out a lot of the expense. You could possibly then lower the prices, and you could attract maybe not the biggest businesses. You might want to target smaller to medium-sized enterprises that don't have the spending power of the big companies currently that serve as trainers' clients. Okay, so attractive destinations are being selected. Okay, with major hub airports, and it's interesting, the mention of an attractive destination. Again, it hits on another feature of these courses, that cannot be replicated by, an online course, obviously. So that's obviously good for Trainer. It's clearly adding to the expense of the course. It's not contributing, obviously, to the quality of the course, but it is contributing to the experience of the course participants, the delegates. So this is a big part of the appeal. It's justification for the higher price. You get to stay in a nice hotel in an exotic location. It's basically a holiday away from the office. So these are all features that go into justifying the high price for these courses. And board members, senior managers, they justify the cost of an intercontinental flight to learn a skill that they could learn in a couple of hours online, because they get to fly off to these nice destinations, and they get to network, etc., and they get to feel valued by their employer. Okay, so lots and lots of elements in the mix that are quite apart from just the core feature of learning a new skill or updating your new skills. So Trainers' courses conducted in, surprise, surprise, luxury hotels. So they've built up, surprise, surprise, relationships with specific hotels and chains so that they can actually negotiate discounts. So they're booking again and again and again with these same hotel chains. And this is a huge part of what this company does. Build relationships with hotels, build relationships with employers, the training managers, the delegates themselves. This is a relationship business. And what we have here, the course is taking place in attractive destinations, in luxury hotels. It increases the value perception of the course. But obviously, as I said before, the location, the fact it's a luxury hotel, etc., has no bearing whatsoever on the course quality. These are just additional features that increase the esteem value of the service, the offering, okay? So we've got to compare that to the use value. So the use value would be all about, what do I learn on this course, okay? Whereas the esteem value is all of these other things that come into play: the nice location, the holiday away from the office, the luxury hotels, etc., the networking opportunities. So there's esteem value here. There's prestige attached to participating in one of these courses. So that comes from P2. So the courses, you know, as I said before, they're not actually running over a whole workday. They're running from 9 until 1:30. And then after that, there's tea, coffee, snacks, there's a full lunch, etc. And that gives the delegates an opportunity to talk to other participants, to network, etc., and to enjoy themselves. Trainer can arrange accommodation for delegates at the hotels, but they often actually make their own arrangements. And trainer would often have 2 or 3 courses running simultaneously at any given hotel. So that allows the same course manager to supervise more than one course at a time. So again, we're kind of seeing, you know, P2, theory of constraints, the capacity limitations that a company like Trainer has. They can only take on so many students for one course. And here we're seeing a kind of a limit of 2 to 3 courses run at the same time in one hotel, because the course manager cannot manage any more than that. And again, we need to make the comparison with online courses that can have massive audiences. They can automate a lot of the administrative stuff that goes on around signing up for courses and getting reminder emails for when courses start, etc. That can all be automated. This is a challenge, I suppose, the Trainer has with these in-person classes. So very, very relationship based, as we've said many times. There's a lot of administrative stuff going on. The course managers are almost like event managers, you know, setting up the accommodation, dealing with flights, arranging with the hotel, the tea, coffee, snacks, and entertainment. So it's more like an event management business. The trainers themselves, we're entering a very, very interesting part of the pre-scene, a crucial part here. So we know that we've got 60 people working at head office, and we had, if I remember correctly, it was 20 or so people that were working across the 3 sales offices. So we've 80, 85 people total in the organization. And look at this. The trainers, the people delivering the courses, who you would think, you know, they're the ones engaging in the core activity, the delivering of a course. You would imagine they are, you know, the key people at this business, 300 of them. So they massively outnumber the number of employees in the business. And they're all working on a part-time basis for Trainer. Each of these trainers has an area of specialty, and the decision has been taken by Trainer to buy in the course creation. Okay, so it's a make versus buy decision. Instead of making the courses themselves and having an in-house team of trainers, they outsource this. So they buy it in. So their core activity really has been outsourced. And as I said, you would almost argue that their core activity is the marketing side of things, the relationship marketing, and not actually the creation of the courses, which is very, very interesting. The challenge, I think, with managing this army of freelancers, these 300 freelancers, these trainers, is that it's very, very challenging. First of all, to motivate them, to incentivize them in the way that you could with an employee. It's likely to be far more transactional. These are one-time arrangements. You know, why would a trainer try too hard developing high-quality materials, etc., if they think it's just going to be a one-time event? And ensuring consistency in terms of the output, in terms of the quality. So P2 quality management, it is difficult to maintain high standards when you're dealing with so many freelancers, with so many different people. They don't, they don't all work, obviously, for Trainer. And they're likely to be quite unaware of the expectations maybe the trainer has and what the standards are. Okay, so this is definitely a big, big feature of this pre-scene. How do you lead these 300 trainers? How do you manage them? How do you incentivize them and ensure that quality standards are consistent and high across the board? Okay, so these 300 trainers are recruited mainly through direct approaches by trainers, course managers. They might, analyze major publications and find out who the authors of different specialty books are. They might their current trainers might recommend colleagues, etc., for a trainer to employ or to take on as freelancers. And because a lot of the courses the trainer has require specialist knowledge of topics that are likely to challenge many potential trainers, they think it makes sense to go out and find these freelancers with areas of specialty to run these courses. So some of these courses, you might run them once or twice a year. So clearly it doesn't make sense to hire a person who would do that. But some of these other courses, the more generic ones, are run several times per year. So I think it probably makes sense to, for the generic courses, for the ones that are run quite a lot, to actually have employees working in those areas, creating standardized content. So the idea is obviously that these are subject matter specialists, that they're obviously credible, they deliver useful courses. So the other thing I think with specialty areas of knowledge, specialisms, is that we can be dealing with quite niche topics here. And the idea is that the course managers are overseeing the work of these specialist trainers. But of course, if these are very niche topics, that, there are only a few experts in the world in some of these areas, how do the course managers actually have sufficient expertise to properly review these courses? So that is one potential issue. So the trainers are expected to develop their own course materials for each of these courses, even if there's a public one in existence, even if there is already a bank of content out there that they could utilize. So that seems like a little bit that they're having to reinvent the wheel. So again, for the generic courses, the ones that are very popular, as I said, the course content is likely to be similar from one tuition company to another, or quite similar. Does it make sense to, have the trainers come and spend a lot of time reinventing the wheel when you could just develop your own set of materials? You could have a small core team working on the most popular courses and standardizing the set of materials to be used every time there's a course run here. And that would save the trainers time. It would also lead to probably higher quality and less variability in terms of the quality of the course materials being produced by the individual trainers. So taking a more standardized approach for the popular courses, at least. Currently, does the company have style guides and templates that trainers can use? As I said before, who's reviewing the courses before they're actually delivered? The course managers might be expected to do that, but if it's an area of, that's very specialized and niche, they mightn't have sufficient expertise to review those materials ahead of time. So as I said, the alternative is, I think, to employ a small team of content creators to standardize the content used for the most popular courses. Okay, that I think makes a lot of sense. You might hire a team of 20, 30 people. They could build out a big bank of materials for the courses that are being booked for, again and again and again. And you would save the trainers time. You would ensure higher quality there as well. So, they're not receiving as well the trainers' payment for the development of the material. So there's an incentives question here. They're being told, the trainers, that they can repeat this course if it goes well, but that is an uncertainty. So we've got a performance management issue here, an incentive issue here. It's highly uncertain that they will repeat this course. So why would they go to the bother and effort of developing, great course materials if they think that they're only going to use them once? So there's a little bit of a problem, I think, there. And we've got a IAS 38 intangible assets question. If the trainers are the ones developing their own course materials, who actually owns this intellectual property? So that is a little bit of a doubt. You would presume maybe that trainer is signing an agreement with the 300 trainers that they have, that the IP actually belongs to, trainer as a company. But again, there's a fairness question there, because the 300 trainers, they're not being compensated for that directly. So is that fair? It's likely, I think, to lead to a lot of dissatisfaction with the 300 freelancers. And that is a theme that will be revisited later in the pre-scene when we come to the articles. There are signs that these freelancers are not altogether happy with their arrangement with a trainer. So IAS 38 intangible assets. When the course materials are actually produced, potentially, these course materials could generate benefits over many years if you're trying to standardize this course content and you're going to reuse it, which makes a lot of sense. Rather than just developing new course materials for each and every course, which seems inefficient and is likely to be an expense, one-time expense each and every time. What you could do is, under IAS 38, you could develop course materials, because you're going to generate revenues from those course materials over a long period of time. If you're trying to standardize it, you can then capitalize that as a development cost. Okay. So the delegates are asked, the ones that participate in the course, these executives, they're being asked to develop or to evaluate trainers at the conclusion of each course. So the course manager provides the trainer with this feedback and makes suggestions on how to improve for future courses. The course manager also sits in for part of the course, so they're getting to review the work directly in that way. The course content is expected to be technically correct, but also the trainers are expected to have a lively and engaging manner. So do the trainers get any guidance from trainer on this? So again, a question being asked there. So trainer, it seems, is demanding a lot from its 300 trainers. They want them to be subject matter experts. Everything is to be technically correct. They have to develop their own course materials, even if they already exist, each and every time, even though there's high uncertainty about repeating the courses. And they're expected to be superstars in terms of having a lively, engaging manner. And all of this really without guidance from trainer. So a lot is being asked of the 300 freelancers. We're seeing potential issues in terms of motivation, in terms of poor incentives for the 300 trainers. So I'm not surprised that it would cause dissatisfaction. And also we're seeing that trainer, the company, is quite ruthless in terms of, withdrawing long-serving trainers from service if they get even one, poorly reviewed course. So one trainer can be pulled even after long service, which is quite ruthless, and it must negatively affect, again, the incentives and the view of the trainer company and the loyalty to the trainer company from these 300 subject matter experts. So these are very highly qualified people. You cannot simply treat them, with this kind of, I suppose, disrespect. You cannot just treat them in this transactional way. So what's very interesting about Trainer as a company is that with their customers, they're taking great effort to ensure that they have a proper relationship in place. They're really looking after them. So clearly they're looking after that stakeholder. But with another crucial stakeholder, which is the 300 freelancers, very transactional, quite cold, quite ruthless. That's an oversight, okay? So in terms of stakeholder management, I think the 300 trainers are not being well managed, and I think they're going to run into trouble. It's definitely the case, of course, that there's another issue with so many freelancers, which I've said before. It's difficult to manage the quality. So a degree of standardization, I think, needs to be introduced to the company. And the way to do that is to develop standard materials for the most popular courses. You could get around that. But it's clear that one trainer could, very seriously affect the whole, the experience of delegates on a course, and could affect negatively the brand image. And, if there's an important relationship with a certain client, one unsatisfied trainer who is, not bothered about doing a good job, it could endanger the whole relationship with an important client. So there's an importance to treat the 300 trainers much better, to ensure also that they're incentivized to do high quality work, and that will lead to a better experience for the delegates. Okay, so the 3-day courses that would typically be run also require a day of travel at the beginning and the end of the course. And this is also not, the trainers that show up to this course, they're traveling for 1 day at the start, 1 day at the end, so they have to take a whole week out. And I think it's mentioned there that they're not being compensated for that either. So their flights will be paid for, but they're not being paid for the days themselves. Okay, so again, it's going to lead to dissatisfaction. So trainer does not employ any trainers on a permanent basis, which can make it difficult to facilitate courses. So again, pointing to the need maybe to hire some trainers at least. And they do pay an attractive daily fee. So that is the one big incentive they have. So we're going to pay you an attractive daily fee, but we're not going to pay you for the travel at the start and the end. We'll pay for the flight, but not the day itself. And we're not going to pay you for the development of the content. So the one thing they have is an attractive daily fee. So what they're doing here in terms of performance management, coming back to E2, is they're relying on extrinsic rewards, so pure financial motivation. But what they're lacking is the intrinsic rewards that come with being, cared for as an employee, for example, and the psychological factors that play into engaged employees. So that is what is missing big time, I think, in the relationship with the 300 freelancers. Another thing that trainer expects from these freelancers is that they cannot work with other training companies. So they're demanding exclusivity. So, again, if you're bringing on subject matter experts, very highly qualified people, and demanding exclusivity from them, these might be, in some cases, very high-profile academics, might have written books, they might be well in demand. That's a lot to ask again. So they're asking so much from these freelancers, and I think giving so little. So I think this is a problem area, definitely, for the business. It's a big, big feature of this pre-scene. How do you manage and incentivize your tutors better than you're currently doing? There are clear red flags here. So touching on investment appraisal, P2, there's some issues I want to talk about here. One is hiring more full-time, or hiring some full-time trainers, because currently they've got none. They're just outsourcing everything. As I said, it makes sense, I think, to hire full-time trainers for the most popular courses, and to hire people who would create course content, standardized course content for those popular courses. Obviously, that is an investment, so you've got to use things like net present value and other investment tools to determine that, the viability of that, the financial viability. And purchasing learning content as well. So another alternative is, instead of creating your own learning content, is that you could subscribe to another service or actually purchase content created by another business. So that is something that would entail an appraisal in terms of the long-term financial viability of doing that. So there's some options that the business has. Okay, the course managers, they're creating schedules of courses, both public and bespoke, that will potentially be attractive to clients. And, the public courses deal with obvious topics. We've talked about that already, so quite generic, so there's likely to be a lot of competition there. They also, the course managers, develop leads with corporate clients. That's been talked about. They keep close contact with past delegates on past courses. They deal with HR departments and people who would be decision makers when it comes to the provision of courses at their company and selecting training partners like Trainer. So this is all about lead generation, identifying influencers at companies, the decision makers who have the ability to purchase courses. And very, very time intensive, very labor intensive. It's about developing the relationship. And as I said, I think there's more of a role for digital marketing, basically, which we'll talk about next. So they're using break times to interact with delegates, and in a kind of subtle way. So it's a little bit underhand, perhaps. They're trying to gather market intelligence to send back to the head office, to send to the local sales offices. Time intensive, quite unstructured. So we've talked about how do you capture that data and ensure it's being that other members of the organization can tap into that useful market intelligence. And what the company is currently doing is they're chasing business. They're trying to generate these leads in a very old-fashioned kind of way. And what they want to try to do more of is attract leads. The way you do that is with your website. So they've got to optimize a website. The indication is that it's not perhaps optimized. Sometimes they're making sales through the website. I think they could probably do much more there, and they could have far more automated online marketing, at least to establish initial contact. So a HR manager or a decision maker at one of these companies comes to Google, is looking for a particular course. The trainer website is coming towards the top of the list, so it's been well optimized in terms of search engine optimization. They're coming to the website. It's easy to use. Everything is clear. There's a good incentive to sign up for the contact form. They might get something free, a free report, a free webinar, something like that. And they're joining an email list. Then there are automated emails going out to the person who signed up, and you're establishing initial contact. And if they like what they see, they're encouraged to book a call. Again, it's automated calendar entries, etc., being set up, and that's all very hands-off. You set it one time, and then you can forget about it. And what that's doing is it's establishing initial contact, and it's a more automated approach to building a relationship. Okay. So course managers, as I said before, they're also developing, they're also looking after travel, accommodation, social activities. So event managers, essentially. And the course managers are expected to plan and make the arrangements for future courses. So they're expected to recruit trainers, organize flights and accommodation for the trainers, track bookings to see if the numbers are viable. So quite a varied role. And we've talked about the importance already of perhaps developing standardized content and maybe developing a standardized bank of online on-demand content. So what that would allow you to do then is you could assign work to delegates in advance of a course. So they would go to your website and, they would cover the basics. Then when they show up to the in-person training sessions at the hotel, it's more about adding value and resolving doubts. And that would probably lead to a more effective learning experience. In terms of retaining stuff, they would also, after the course, be able to go back to that online content. And I think that's something that the trainer could be looking at. So course managers are also responsible for briefing staff at the 3 overseas sales offices on any information they've collected. So they're interacting all the time on how best to sell courses to delegates and employers from the host countries. There might be language barriers there. So the local sales offices can tailor the feedback coming from course managers and translate it into local languages, etc. So they can make effective use of their contact list. Okay. So let's take a look at what topic managers do. So sitting above the course managers, we have topic managers. So these are sitting at head office. And the way that Trainer organizes its range of courses, it categorizes them under, I think it's 5 areas. So they've got management, accounting and finance, specialized courses, oil and gas engineering, and health and safety. And they have each topic gets a topic manager, so 5 topic managers who have overall responsibility for the public and bespoke courses that can take place under each of those 5 topics. And the topic managers supervise the activities of their course managers. Okay, so for example, at the end of a course, the course manager, who's responsible for supervising it, compiles a report and sends it back to the topic manager. Okay, so the topic managers, there are 5 of them over each of those 5 big areas, and they supervise the course managers, as we said before. They're responsible for managing quality in the topic area. So quality is a big concern. As we said, I think the fact that they're outsourcing this core competence to this army of freelancers is going to lead to great variability in terms of quality. There doesn't seem to be any standardization taking place. That's a P2 issue, managing quality. So I think bringing some of that work in-house for the most popular courses is one way to get around quality issues there. So under these 5 topic managers, we've got 30 course managers. So that means we've got 6 course managers, maybe on average, reporting to each topic manager. Okay. And then in turn, you've got 300 trainers sitting under these course managers. So you've got maybe on average 10 trainers for each course manager. So the 30 course managers each specialize in a particular topic area. So they have a broad range of responsibilities we touched on before, between scheduling courses and the event management, etc., engaging with trainers and finding the right trainers, organizing flights, organizing accommodation, ensuring there's entertainment at the hotels, etc. Very, very varied roles, interacting with delegates and collecting, intelligence from these delegates in terms of future courses they could be doing, sending reports back to the topic managers and collecting feedback in that way. Very labor intensive, okay? So building relationships, maintaining relationships, booking all of these flights, accommodation, etc. Very labor intensive. So I do think this is a company that stands out as not being particularly digitally savvy, quite old-fashioned in its approach. It's worked up until now, but with the vast number of online players and online platforms, etc., I think that they could come under threat from lower-cost digital disruptors, especially as online learning options become more and more engaging. They're improving all the time. Production values are improving all the time as well. So I talked a little bit earlier on as well about, the fact that this is a perfectly competitive market, and, the traditional view of a market is, each of the participants is chasing profit. It's quite, cutthroat, etc. But what's become more fashionable in recent years is to talk about the business ecosystem. It's kind of a friendlier way, I suppose, of looking at the marketplace. It's a broader interpretation of what a marketplace involves. You're obviously spanning geographies, cross-border transactions are the norm now. But it's more about collaboration between different stakeholders, both public and private, and many different players, and having that fuller view of the environment, as we said at the start of this series of videos, understanding the wider context within which your business is operating. So in terms of the business ecosystem for this particular business, you're going to be thinking of, your customers. They come in terms of the end user, which is the delegates that are coming to the courses. They need to be satisfied with the courses. You've got the employers who are paying for the courses. They're not price sensitive. Then you've got the people who are actually delivering the courses, these 300 trainers, and we've seen a number of red flags there in terms of incentives and their likely dissatisfaction with trainer, and how you can manage that better, and the likely quality issues that come with trying to manage so many different freelancers and this lack of a standardized approach, and having to reinvent the wheel each time they do a new course by developing new materials. In terms of partnerships, something that jumps out, I think, is the lack of digital savvy in this business. So I think they would be wise to look into ways to become more digitally savvy. So that would involve, I think, building an IT team, hiring an IT director. It's hard to get something, an online tuition offering off the ground. So they might want to maybe acquire an online business, an online training company. And that would be one way to quickly gain that skill set. So they could potentially do that. They could partner with digitally savvy enterprises as well to deliver online courses. So that's another option. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to leave it there. So I was thinking we could possibly go to page 13 or so. We're at page 11. But because we've gone past the 2-hour mark and I want to make time for questions, we will actually stop there. Okay, so it's question time. You can use the chat box to the right of the webinar to put your questions in, and I'll respond to as many of those as I can. So type your questions in there, any doubts that you have whatsoever, please do that. Okay. Okay, so let's see what the questions are. So we've got quite a few. I'm going back to the start, guys, and there are quite a few comments. So for any of you who doubt whether the session is being recorded or not, yes, it was recorded. So what will happen is most likely on Monday, towards the end of the day, you will see this appear on the website. So anyone who is a VIVA customer, whether you're an all access member or whether you're going to participate in the elite course, you would be able to access that on the website. But the other thing is that you should receive a link to the replay of this session in the next day or so. So you can also access it that way. Okay, so I'm just going through the questions. I'm looking at your comments. Okay, so some comments on all access. Can we have marking for at least one mock exam if you have all access? If you do have all access, you can purchase marking services at any time from anywhere from 1 to 5 mock exams. Okay, so you can purchase that additionally. Marcin asks, what is the difference between the elite course and the essential or genius course for the MCS? Okay, so the essential or genius course, they would involve being able to attend the 7 webinars, and you would get 5 exams included. The genius course would include some marking, but the elite course goes well beyond both of those, because what you get is you get those 6 workshop sessions additionally. So that's an additional 12 hours of very exam focused sessions. You get 2 30-minute one-to-one calls with the tutor. You get to participate in a group that is no bigger than 20. So you get a lot of attention from your tutor, same day email responses, etc. You get a lot of interaction with your tutor, who's a former CIMA prize winner, Hugh Martin. You also get a pass guarantee as part of the elite course. So if you fail the May exam, you get to participate in the next elite course for August for free. And you get marking services included in the elite course as well. So it's a very, very complete course. As I said, we did benchmark it very carefully against other offerings. And typically what we saw was that courses that were fairly similar with other tuition providers, they were, the standard price was £1,000 plus, even £1,400, I think was the most expensive. Whereas the one we're offering is, as I said, we're running a special offer for £599 for the next few days. Even at £699, it's extremely good value. Okay, there's a question. Wanted to confirm for the August MCS exams if we can get the link also. For the August exams, we will do another round of webinars. Okay. If you have, okay, an important point. Someone is asking, if we already have all access, can we book the elite course? Yes, you can, absolutely. And as an all access member, you've another discount actually. So if you're an all access member, you can purchase the elite course for £499. Okay, so that's important to mention that if you already have all access. Okay. The slides for this session that I've been presenting, the annotated pre-scene, they will be available to all access students and to elite course students, okay? I see some of you had audio problems with this webinar. Please let me know if you did. I mean, you'll be getting the replay link if you signed up for the webinar. You should receive the replay. Okay, lots of comments. So Lorraine asks, is the MCS usually a service company? No, not usually. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. There's usually a variety of different companies that CIMA has tested over the years. Mohammed asks, Northland, which country could it be based on? Good question, Mohammed, but it's very hard to answer. All we can say is that it's, it is a developed country, highly educated workforce, very likely to have, high costs in terms of salaries. So that's all we can really say. We cannot really know if it's modeled on Scandinavia, or if it's, the United States, or if it's, we don't know. Rosanna says, what is your advice on the best way to master this case study for the gateway student? That's a great question, Rosanna. I'm not going to lie to you and say that, for a gateway student, it is, it's easy, or the fact of the matter is that the highest fail rate of all CIMA exams is for MCS gateway students. And that's because they got exemptions from the entire operational level and the 3 objective test subjects at the management level. That's E2, F2, P2. And the fact of the matter is that so many gateway students come and sit the MCS without the same level of technical understanding as other CIMA students, the ones who have come through the operational and management level. They have an advantage. So what that means, Rosanna, is that you do need to spend more time than other students reviewing E2, F2, and P2. I suppose, with VIVA's offerings, the All Access and the Elite course, you get access to the E2, F2, and P2 courses that we have. So you can review those courses. You don't have to go away and buy an E2, F2, and P2 course. With All Access or with the Elite course, you actually just get access to our E2, F2, P2 courses. So that's a good start. So you need to spend more time on E2, F2, and P2 theory review. That's for sure. Yeah, Ivan asks a good question. This is more something, Ivan, I will touch upon in the second session on Monday, which is when we'll be looking at the financial statements. There is an entry in the statement of financial position for trainer that is intangible assets. It's not a huge figure. What could it be? So it could be intellectual property in the form of some of the course content. I raised that doubt that the course content that the trainers are developing for each course, it may well be that they're signing an agreement with trainer that says the trainer owns this intellectual property, and they might be using it in that way. Other things would be software licenses and things like that. So if they were using some kind of central systems to capture the intelligence, the market information they're gathering on the courses from delegates, from HR managers, etc., from sales offices, that might go into a central customer relationship management software system or something like that. Could be that too. So they would be some ideas that occur to me. So Olumide, I hope I'm pronouncing that Olumide correctly. How can you assist to develop my writing technique? Mock exam practice is crucial. So do as many mock exams based on this pre-scene as you can. An error that a number of students actually make is they go back to old pre-scenes and previous exams, and they start writing, model answers based on old pre-scenes. And I don't see the point of it. What you want to do is to do mock exams based on this pre-scene. So obviously VIVA offers lots of mock exams for this pre-scene. Other tuition providers offer some mock exams as well. So, it's up to you to decide which you like. We've got 5. I think that's more than enough. I think if you do 5 and take them seriously and do those 5 mock exams under mock exam conditions, do them on the website, give yourself the 3 hours that you would have on the day of the exam. The first exam, it'll be a disaster. The second exam, it'll be a little bit less of a disaster. And with each exam you do, what you want to do is you want to make your mistakes in the mock exams. So many students, they make the mistake of, they don't feel ready for the mock exams, and they kind of just delay it, and then they might sit one, and then they go into the exam, and they're not ready. And that's a mistake. What you want to do is you want to take the mock exams before you're ready. It's okay that you don't feel ready. You want to make your mistakes in the mock exams, And by the fifth one, I guarantee you'll be making fewer mistakes, especially if you're getting marking and feedback, okay? That's really, really crucial. We see big improvements from students who get feedback on their mocks, okay? So that's the best way to improve your writing technique, practice and feedback from your tutor. VIVA also has a series of videos on exam day technique on the day of the exam. That's a really good series of videos, which is included in the MCS course. So have a look at those too. CIMA says, and again, I am sorry if I've pronounced your name incorrectly, says also that you also recommend outsourcing IT if no IT or tech team is happening, is in trainer. So we'll see in the second half of the pre-scene on Monday, there is no IT director, there's no sign of an IT team. That's an oversight. And the question is whether you bring people in or whether you outsource in some way. So I think there are a number of things. Yeah, you could outsource some of that work. You could engage a consultant, a Deloitte or someone like that, that could lend you that IT expertise. You could hire an IT director and have a small IT team, at least to get started with. And you could also rely on a consultant like Deloitte or something like that as well. And if you wanted to get into online tuition, for example, again, you could partner with an existing online tuition company and develop materials with them. And, that's another way to do things. Lorraine asks, are there suggested solutions provided for the mock exams? Yes, we always have model solutions included with our mock exams. The other thing with All Access is, with this subscription model, and the same with the Elite course, we always include mock exams and we always include the model solutions with the All Access and with the Elite course. I know some tuition providers, they charge, they offer a subscription and it might look like it's an attractive price or whatever. You pay for it, then you realize you have to pay additionally to unlock mock exams. And we don't think that's very fair, so we include the mock exams always. Aditi asks, can you share some best practices to ace the case study exam? I think, Aditi, it's a little bit beyond the scope of this session, which was just focused on the pre-scene. It's a great question, Aditi. Honestly, I'd be here all day if I was to go through all of them. I think, if you're taking the full course, we're going to be talking about all of them in great detail, especially if you take the Elite course. You're going to be going through them in great detail. But just high-level overview. Some of the things that come to mind. First, what I said before, lots of mock exam practice. That is the most important thing. Even if you don't feel ready, you want to be trying the mocks and making your mistakes in the mocks. Ideally, you're getting those mocks corrected. That's the best way to improve. Okay? And you're getting used to managing your time well, so make sure you do those mock exams under exam timing conditions. That's the 3 hours. You want to be very flexible when it comes to the case study. This is quite a subjective exam. I've had students in the past say, we do at the end of this series of webinars, we do one called Key Issues, where we talk about the 10 most important topics. And some students, once or twice, it hasn't happened with a lot, but once or twice students have come back to me and said, yeah, I only attended the Key Issues session. I thought that was the only one that was important. And I thought they were guaranteed to come up in the exam. That's all I studied. And only 3 or 4 of them came up. Well, but it's great that 3 or 4 came up, but it's a mistake to be very narrow with your focus and very inflexible with the case study exam. You want to be very flexible. You want to expose yourself to lots and lots of ideas. And that's what we do, for example, in the first session. So with the first pre-scene analysis, which was today, the second pre-scene analysis, which is on Monday, and tomorrow's industry analysis especially, we expose you to a lot of ideas. That's intentional. So we want to get you thinking of a lot of different things. So anything can come up in the exam. And what we do then is we take a little bit of a break and then we kind of narrow the focus. So what we do is the E2 applied session. There we pick 5 or 6 big theories from E2 and we say, okay, these are particularly important. Let's apply them now to the pre-scene. Same with F2, same with P2. So there we're kind of narrowing the range of potential scenarios that come up, and we do the same with the key issues. But you want to start out with that wide view of potential scenarios that come up. and then get narrower and narrower in your focus. So there, some of the things that occur to me. So Evis says the gateway students, how do we handle it? It is tougher for the gateway students. I suppose I would say this because we've got an elite course that we sell, but the elite course is very complete. You get a lot of attention. You can resolve all of your doubts immediately with a very, very, very good tutor, Hugh Martin, as I said, CIMA prize winner. So that's a great option. If you don't want that, it's about reviewing the E2, F2, and P2 theory, spending a lot of time with that because you need to make sure that you have that technical knowledge. Leah says, I already have access to the objective test syllabus through my training provider, First Intuition. So is there any way we can access a basic package of webinars on MCS and pre-scene analysis without the objective test syllabus? So there are some, if you go to the website, vivatuition.com, Leah, you can purchase individual MCS courses. So there are some more basic courses you could get, the pre-scene analysis, the industry, some mock exams, and nothing else. So that's one option, certainly. So go along to vivatuition.com to check those out. Okay, Abdallah asks about the value chain of this service business. How could the primary activities be enhanced? Actually, Abdallah, that is something that we will be going into detail in the second session. So I don't want to spoil that surprise, okay? But I wanted to discuss that in much more detail in the second session. But it's a very good question, okay? So it will be discussed on Monday night. Charlie says, I have recently rejoined CIMA after graduating 3 years ago. Basically, I've forgotten most of the knowledge on E2, P2, and F2. Should I revise all of the 3 pillars before taking the MCS? It's certainly the case that the syllabus has changed. It changed in 2019 for E2, P2, and F2. The one that's changed the most is E2, which introduces a lot of digital concepts and digital disruption. So E2 is the one that you need mostly to review. Do you need to go back and review these from start to finish in their entirety? I would say no. I think, a great way to do this is to attend these sessions and you'll start to see the themes that are coming up again and again for E2, P2, and F2 and give those most of your attention. And then when you hear those topics being repeated for those 3 subjects, go back to the E2, F2, and P2 courses that VIVA has if you're a VIVA member. Or whatever courses that you have access to with another tuition provider if you have them, E2, F2, P2, and focus on the new topics in particular. So digital disruption for E2, things like that. That would be a good way to approach the study of E2, P2, and F2. So we've got, just taking a note. Okay, Paolo, a tricky question. That's very cruel, Paolo, throwing a tricky question at me after 2.5 hours of talking through the pre-scene. Okay, let's see. I've seen lots of references about the best answers for the case study topics. And overall, the guidance is to be objective and straightforward. However, in the proposed answers for different variants from CGMA, the answers are pretty much extensive. In my opinion, it's hard to be delivered in only 60 minutes considering the time spent with planning. Can you comment a bit on that and share your thoughts? Okay, that's a good question. When it comes to the solutions, you're right. You have to be realistic, you have to be straightforward, and you have to get to the point fast in the exam. This is a time-pressured exam, and what students often do is they waste a lot of time writing very long introductions. Don't do that. One line of introduction, just restating the question so that you show that you understand it, and then get into answering the questions. You're right. I've seen tuition providers, for example, provide model solutions that are 10 pages long, and they hit every single point that you could possibly think of for the question. And I think that's a mistake because you're misleading students. You're showing them something that is not attainable, not realistic to aim for that kind of standard. No one has time to write 10 pages on the day of the exam, regardless of who the student is. And students get stressed out then. What we try to do is we try to write realistic model solutions. So we try to present, this is what a good student could reasonably aspire to write. Okay. So that's what you want to be thinking of. Yes, you're right. You've got to be straightforward, get straight to the point, not focus on the sort of nice to haves. You just want to focus on answering this question, getting down your 4 or 5 points, giving each point a separate paragraph, pulling in, supporting evidence from the pre-scene, using, a relevant theory here and there, and that's it. Okay. Okay, so Raphael says, at what point will we see the process flow for constructing a good answer to questions? That's something that's really a key feature of the elite course, Raphael. And there are standalone sessions. That's basically what you'll be talking about that all the time in the elite course. Okay, when the elite course will be offered, I cannot see it on your site. Okay, Marcin, you're right. You can't find it on vivatuition.com, but what I will do is we have a landing page where you can view the full details of the course, and I will send this after this session. So I'm putting the link to the MCS Elite course in the chat box. You see it at the top of the chat box. By clicking on that, you will get the full details of the course. And there's also the link to pay the deposit of £99 to book your place in the course. There are 12 places taken up. We will only take 20 places maximum. That's a key feature of this course. It's like what I was talking about on the pre-scene, that they intentionally keep the group sizes small. We do that because Hugh is very involved with actually building a relationship with the students on this course. And if we had 100 people on the course, that wouldn't be possible. So we only want 20 people maximum. So I know it sounds like it's just a marketing gimmick when I say act fast to book your place, but it actually is the case. If you do want to participate in the elite course, there are only 8 spaces left, and I would encourage you to book your place by paying the £99 deposit in the next couple of days. Okay. Someone says, what does CGMAX mean? Yeah, okay, so on the first page of the pre-scene, just the introductory page, it said CGMAX. Most times it just says CIMA. That was the copy we were sent. I think it's to cater also for the American audience, which is AICPA. So, the American CPA organization formed an alliance with CIMA a few years ago, and they just use a different term instead of CIMA, CGMAX, but it's the same pre-scene, okay? Okay, so guys, I think we're coming towards the end. I'm just going to take one question, maybe more, 1 or 2. I'm sorry, I can't get to all of the sessions, or all of the questions, sorry. Someone says, I would love to be assigned for the August session. Would like to know when the webinars will start. So we'll send out details of those webinars, but we'll be doing the same sessions for August. The exact same, again, the elite course, the webinar, the live webinars, etc. We'll send those out in a couple of months' time. The mock exams, Nicola, are already, 3 of them are already available, and the other 2 will be ready by probably Monday or Tuesday. Okay. You'll see at the end of the elite course link I sent there, for anyone who wants to book a place in the August elite course or even the November elite course, there are also links for that, just in case you want to book them. They'll fill up as well, but it's already possible to book them. Okay. So Olumide says, if I book the elite course for then my February result comes out as a pass, will you credit my payment? Yes, we will. When would the elite course for August start? Okay, so that's that would be coming, in the next 2 months. When this round is finished, we will send out reminders for those. Ange, thank you so much as well for attending. Hugh is a brilliant tutor for the elite course. For anyone who's thinking about the elite, I completely agree. Hugh is a fantastic tutor. So yes, yeah, he's the one who'll be leading the elite course. Okay, we're going to leave it there. I hope you have a great weekend, and thank you so much for attending the session. I really like doing these sessions. I would love to do more of them. Unfortunately, I'm having to kind of step back from a lot of the teaching stuff and run the business. So I'm in kind of a more of a CEO or managing director role, whereas Hugh and Hugo and the other members of the team are doing more teaching now. Okay, so have a great weekend and take care. Bye-bye.